is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That, of course, was the soothing sounds of Soulfly from the Enslaved release. That was Treachery. And on the line right now, we've got a guy that's going to bring some treachery to the masses with the Full Terror Assault Open Air Festival here on U.S. soil. It's one of the first in a very, very long time to happen here in the U.S., and I'm happy to have Shane on the line to talk about organizing this thing and what all it's going to bring to people. So, first of all, Shane, welcome to the Classic Metal Show.
Hey, thanks for having me. What's up?
Well, dude, I have to admit I didn't know a whole lot about the festival until your publicist reached out, and then once I started looking at it as an extreme metal fan, I was like, holy shit, this is like every solid good band of both the higher profile as well as some of the deep underground bands all in one place. This is just an excellent festival, man.
Yeah, it's actually, this is the 5th year, and every year we try to do a little bit better than the previous year, kind of raise the bar,
Sure.
So, this year's definitely one of the biggest ones we've had as far as the lineup goes.
Absolutely, man. Well, before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, give everybody the details, when the festival is, where people can go online to get tickets, all that stuff, so that we can get people looking while they're listening.
Well, the festival begins September 4th, and it runs through the 7th, and actually starts on a Wednesday.
Okay.
Wednesday is basically just kind of a early camping day. You can come down and get set up, and we kind of do a pre-party type deal on Wednesday where everybody just kind of hangs out and we got a DJ going that night. It's pretty laid back, and then everything starts on Thursday and then runs through Saturday. And the website, you can check it out, fullterrorassault.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. But it's located in Southern Illinois. It's a small little town it's called Cave in Rock, Illinois, and it's about maybe it's on the Kentucky-Illinois border, and it's about maybe an hour and 20 from Carbondale.
Okay.
So tickets are cheap. We try to keep things affordable. It's in advance it's $69, or actually it's for a 3-day pass it's $79.
Okay.
For a 4-day pass, it's $99, and then we do the early camping as well. Like you can always come down on Wednesday if you bought a 3-day pass and you still want to come early. Everything's still available, but it's BYOB. It's free camping. We got showers. I mean, for the person who hasn't been to this before, maybe kind of like yourself,
yeah,
you got to get down and check it out, because I mean the campgrounds, they're really. It's a really nice area. I keep saying it, but it's not like you're just throwing a tent up in a cornfield or
right.
an open field or whatever. I mean, it's a really scenic area down there, and they're really we've got power for RVs and it's the guy who owns the place has been doing a lot of different events down there for almost 25 years. So it's a really nice campground. And once you get there and you come one time, you'll be back every year.
Very cool. Well, dude, you can't go wrong with this lineup either. I mean, even if you didn't want to camp or any of that stuff, if you just wanted to come and see metal, you have, as far as the big name bands, I guess, that people would know, you have what I would say is a very interesting collection of not only bands that are most known, but bands that are coming together for the first time in a long time, like Violence and like Exhorder and the new MOD that's out there. You have those bands that are coming together that a lot of extreme metal fans have probably never seen before.
Yeah, I mean, we got lucky this year with scoring the Violence reunion. I got to give props to a lady that helps me out, Asley. She kind of, it's kind of it's not just myself that's scouting through these bands and looking. She's involved with she's got input in it, and I've got a lot of my friends and stuff like that. They're, they listen to a lot of different genres of music
Sure.
and stuff like that. So I'll be honest with you, the cool thing for me is I always find those new bands as well myself every year, man. There's bands that I've never really heard of. They're up and coming. You check them out. It's like, man, these guys are really good, So it's something for me as well to check out new acts. And we don't, we try to diversify it, where, you've got grindcore and you've got death metal and you've got, hardcore and, just a wide variety of music, you know what I mean, to kind of keep it interesting.
Absolutely. And, and as far as the quote unquote name bands go, I mean, you've got Soulfly, who they never stop touring, but they never disappoint. So that's always good. And then go ahead.
Yeah, but those guys, well, they'll probably for sure bust out, a handful of old Sepultura songs, which, myself, I'm a huge fan of that. So I definitely want to hear that.
Sure.
But,
definitely. And then go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that lineup, even like Grave, coming over from Sweden, they don't do that. I don't believe those guys have really been through the Midwest. It's probably been, I think they might have did a tour, years ago, but
right.
An act like that coming through, it just doesn't happen that often,
Exactly. And there's plenty of bands that are, looking at the list that I know. I'm a big, as I'm sure you can figure out, I am a big fan of this kind of music. I mean, we cover mostly Metallica's usually probably high end on the show, but for my personal listening, this is where I go, is to this much heavier stuff. And looking at this list, I mean, I've seen a lot of these bands before, but a lot of the bands that are playing, I have not seen in decades. Like Byzantine, I haven't seen in a decade, and Waco Jesus, I have not seen in probably 15 years or so. It's been since I saw them, and that
right.
And that is, to me, that's that's one of the main draws to this festival, is that it doesn't really matter what kind of an extreme metal fan you are, you're going to see something that you just have not had a chance to see. Unless you tour manage all these bands, you haven't seen all these bands.
Right. Yeah. And like I say, that's one of the things. If you go back and even look at like the first 4 years that we've had, we've always mixed it up with a lot of good up and coming bands, and with, playing with a lot of different styles, the headliners and stuff. The first year we had Napalm, Obituary,
right.
Terrorizer, and then the second year we had Sacred Reich and Dying Fetus, and then the third year, we had Overkill and Venom Inc. and we just constantly trying to mix it up and make it interesting, where even the up and coming bands, like if you look at the lineup this year and stuff like that, you've got bands like Skeletal Remains and even Christics from Spain coming over. I mean, those guys, that's going to be a sleeper band. Those guys,
sure.
That's the first time in the USA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think once people check those guys out, they're going to be like, oh my God, who the fuck are these guys?
Right, exactly, man. No,
and you got Inside Pack, and I mean, there's a lot of different styles and a lot of different, some great bands on it, and every year, and we try to, the thing that's different about the FTA thing is that, even the bands that really there's a lot of bands that play that they're not on a label, so to speak, or a smaller
mm-hmm.
label. That's the thing, is try to give those bands a chance to play with with the other with the national touring bands and stuff like that.
Sure.
Back when I was growing up, I'm 50 years old now, but I used to go to Milwaukee Metal Fest every
sure.
year. It used to be like a ritual, and that was the thing, the bands could play with, it was a little bit different scenario. There was a pay to play, but
mm-hmm.
but everybody, you could get on that bill, and they had, just so many killer acts, and you can, if you were a hustling band, you could get yourself out there, and we're talking back in the tape days, and stuff
sure.
like that. But you could really, and that's what the whole FTA thing, I think, is it's really geared for, is those bands that want to hustle and want to, be a part of something and come to an event like this and play in front of, a diverse crowd and a lot of different people who might not even know who the hell they are.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And if you talk to a lot of the different people who've been there, that's, everybody says that. Well, I discovered these guys at FTA, and I'm a huge fan. And we try to not to bring bands back,
same
back-to-back years,
right.
mix it up. But I mean, there's so many bands that want to play on this thing, which is great, you know. But you just can't let everybody play. But
sure,
I don't know. It's a really, you know, it's a really good thing, and you know, hopefully, you know, this being the 5th year, you know, it's starting. It takes time to build something like this. You know, you can't just, you know, unless you're, you know, a big time promoter and you can, you know, book the bands, you know, like that, you know, like the Louder in Life or Rock on the Range and stuff like that. They just, you know, they just got so much of a budget for bands, but
sure,
you know, it's definitely going the right direction. You know, year after year, we're getting a little bit bigger and a little bit, you know, some cooler things added this year. You know, we got a new sponsor this year. Liquid Death Water is going to be a sponsor, which is really cool. You know, and you know, Nuclear Blast is a sponsor.
Sure.
And we've got Matt Swisher, who runs Failure Tapes and Records. He's a sponsor, and that's the other thing that's cool about it, where, you know, you've got a huge label like Nuclear Blast that's behind it, but then you've got a guy like, you know, Matt, who runs Failure Tapes and Records, and he's my second stage sponsor. I mean, this guy lives in like a town of 10,000.
Right.
He's got a small little record label, you know, and a record store, but he's all about it, you know. And those are the type of people that I like to be around, you know. I'm kind of, you know, scaling back so much of who's involved with the sponsoring and stuff like that, but there's a lot of people behind it, you know, that really do a good job and help out, you know, behind the scenes.
Sure. And you know, going to the other sponsor you mentioned, Nuclear Blast, that all by itself says that FTA has a lot of credibility, because I can tell you from 2 weeks ago, I watched damn near every minute of the broadcast of Wacken, and with that festival, every time a band was off stage, it was nothing but Nuclear Blast ads. So they clearly put their money where they think it is best spent to promote, you know, the kind of music that they're releasing. So it's definitely a feather in your cap that they're an active, you know, main stage sponsor for your festival.
Yeah, we were lucky to work out something with those guys. I wasn't directly involved with that. There was a gentleman that was helping us out. His name's Jeff, and he was kind of the liaison for that, which was really cool, because he had been involved in some other things before. So, and that's, it gets back to what I'm saying. You know, a lot of people might think that, well, it's just me running this thing or whatever. And it's you know, we're not a huge festival, but, you know, we're growing, but it takes key people to do a lot of things. You know, I got a lot of good friends that take off work to come down there and, you know, help me set up. And I mean, there's people that came the very first year and, you know, that now being the 5th year, I mean, they'll come down, you know, a week early and just hang out and help set up or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're just that good of friends now. But I mean, that's the cool thing about it. You know, it's kind of a different vibe festival. Hopefully it stays that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't, you know, but you know, I want it to grow, but I don't want it to grow so much where it's just doesn't have that vibe to it. You know?
Sure. Well, and I'll tell you, Shane, years and years ago, it seems like the extreme scene was very strong, like 15 years ago or so, and then it went away for a while, because, like you were saying, you went to Milwaukee Metal Fest, which was obviously a huge one. I went to that once or twice myself, but I also used to work kind of directly with the promoter of the World Series of Metal here in Cleveland for, you know, 4 or 5 years as well. And it was a similar type of a festival where it was, you know, it was held in about a 3,000 seater, and it had, you know, 2 stages running at all times, and maybe a third stage, you know, out back or out by the side or whatever. It was somewhat the same. It was somewhat different, but it was, the thing that was always cool about it was, unlike the, you know, you meant the festivals you mentioned, the Rock on the Range or, you know, or M3 or what have you, you gotta find hardcore metal fans to come to this kind of a festival. This is not the festival for the guy that likes Slipknot and thinks that's the heaviest thing that there's ever been. And I'm not smashing on Slipknot at all. I'm just saying that this isn't their festival. This kind of a festival is for those hardcore guys that listen to death metal, and they're kind of shunned for it probably by all their friends that are listening to the Goo Goo Dolls or whatever. And I mean, it takes a real dedication to be a death metal fan. And what's not, it's not surprising to me as one, but it is always surprising to me when you put something together like this and people come from everywhere to attend it. You know, you don't think there's that many death metal people, and then before you know it, you've got a couple thousand death metal people all converging on a little town in Illinois somewhere, you know, a little campground in Illinois to see, you know, multiple days of metal.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, it's like, you know, it takes that special person to want to drive to, you know, BFE, Illinois, you know what I mean? And then not to mention, you know, it's the internet service is kind of sketchy. The phone service where you're at, you know, it's in and out, you know, and then you got, you know, there's camping, you know, there's not, you know, the closest hotel, you know, there's Airbnbs around there, but it does take that special person to commit to something like that. But, you know, everybody that comes down there, once, like I said, once you come down one time, there's nothing. And I've been to a lot of different festivals,
sure.
You know, Europe or all over the place. So, and, you know, it's just got a really cool laid back vibe. You know, like I say, the BYOB's a big seller. You know, you're not paying $14 for a brew. You can just, you camp out and, you know, you're not getting hassled. And, you know, it's just, it's a good place to go. You know, I know that the camping thing might be a turn off to some people, but, you know, there's hotels around there and stuff like that.
Right.
But it does seem like, you know, I know what you're saying too. It does seem like the extreme metal scene was a little bit stronger, you know, years ago. But I mean, really, I think it's actually on the comeback, to be honest with you.
I definitely agree with that. I think the difference is, though, now is that heavier music has become more mainstream, which kind of made death metal almost go into the darkness for a little while. You know, when, you know, if you point to, you know, everything from the, you know, your Slipknots and your Killswitch Engage and even bands like Slayer, you know, are considered kind of mainstream now. You know, what it did was it made the death metal bands purposely try to get way more extreme, and it kind of, you know, they wanted to make sure that they weren't getting played next to Godsmack on the radio, and I think that's why it went more underground. But I agree with you, man. I think it's a little more underground right now. I think you got to dig a little deeper to find it, but there's a lot of great death metal out there right now.
There is for sure.
You know, yeah, it definitely, and you've got quite a few of them on your festival this year. I wanted to talk about one, and I mentioned them earlier. They're to me, and I don't know all of these bands on the list, but I know most of the big ones, or most, and really not even the big huge ones, but I know quite a few of the bands on your list. And I don't think you got anybody heavier than Waco Jesus on this thing. Are you familiar with them, or have you seen them before?
Yeah, I'm real familiar with those cats.
That's a heavy band, man.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, they definitely, they're not going to leave anybody thinking that they're anything but extreme on every level, on every subject, and on every musical subject.
Well, you know, it's scum grind for life, man. You know,
exactly. No, they definitely are, man. And then I had to ask you about another one, and these guys are making the great faux pas, I think, and I get it. It's supposed to be shocking and whatnot. But come on, Cheese Grater Masturbation. Who named this band? Come on, dude.
Yeah, you know, I seen those guys play out in Las Vegas, and you know, kind of kept in contact with them. So they've been wanting to get on the festival, and you know, like I say, that's the thing is that, you know, I'm all about the bands that are hustlers. You know what I mean? The bands that get out there and try to make stuff happen. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You know, I got a lot of respect for bands that, you know, just pick up the phone or call or text or whatever. I'm not saying I want to get 50, you know, messages every day, but, you know, you meet people and you stay in contact and stuff like that, and they wanted to, they've been trying to get on, and this year, they got on, and there's a lot of bands like that,
Sure.
There's a lot of bands that get on these festivals because, you can just see that there's something, they're hustlers. You can tell there's something about that, the attitude, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So.
No, you're right, and the unique thing is, you're not going to see for various reasons, whether it's how heavy their music is or the name of the band or whatever, you're not going to see a lot of these bands even getting the opportunity always to tour around where you might see them. But
right.
In this kind of an environment, like I'm looking at the list right now of the bands that you have playing, and there's probably 10 that I know I own albums from, Ringworm and Jungle Rot and MOD and Grave, and Cataclysm's my favorite death metal band that's ever existed. So that's a win for you as far as I'm concerned. But Skeletal Remains, Chrysian, these are bands that have had, some success over the last 15 or so years. And they're going to draw people, and those people are going to discover bands like, I don't know, like Rhythm of Fear or Confused or Bleed the Victim that they probably wouldn't hear of otherwise. And that's one of the beauties of these kind of festivals is for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah, because everybody always complains, oh, there's nothing new to listen to. There's nothing new to listen to. Well, here you're going to get 20 bands that you've never heard of before. And 10 of them are going to fill your head with the right kind of sound that you like as an extreme metal fan.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, I think there's 49 bands this year. That's pretty typical for year to year. But,
sure.
I mean, they're all those bands are solid. I mean, if you come out and watch all these bands play, you will walk away with a lot of new interest, to go check out. So, I mean, and that's been in the like I say, in the years past. I'm just doing this for 5 years. There's a lot of bands I probably never would even listen to or gave a second. I'm more of a grindcore type guy myself.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's my style that I prefer, death metal and stuff like that. But I mean, I listen to everything. But there's a lot of bands that when you get submittals and you go through that process and listening to them and stuff like that. Well, these guys, I never heard of these guys, and you get, you start checking them out even more, and you see them on YouTube. So, I mean, that's the vibe that we want to have down there, is where the bands that are actually trying to get out there and hustle and, and make things happen, where they can come out and play with these larger bands and the really good mid-tier bands like the Jungle Rots and,
sure.
and Ringworm and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's the bonus. And then, you got different styles, like you said, where you got like a little bit of hardcore, and then the people that come out maybe to see those guys or see like an Iron Reagan. Mm-hmm. Well, I never seen these, I never seen Grave before. Let me check those guys out. Well, oh shit, these guys have been around for 30 years. Where have I been? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So, I mean, that's the one thing where I think back when you were saying, like, back in the day, there used to be festivals all the time, all over the place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was, that's how you got kind of in tune with a lot of different types of music and bands and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's just such a different environment now. I mean, you used to have festivals all over the place. You used to have like specialty radio where there'd be, 1 hour a week that would play heavy music or whatever, or on college radio or something. And it just seems like everything is gone. It seems like the internet has, it's great that anybody can put out music on the internet, but it's a double-edged sword because, now you're competing with, a guy that has, a half-ass Pro Tools rig and the desire to play versus being a professional band. It's definitely harder to get heard.
It is. You can get out there and you can get out there easier,
mm-hmm.
but to make it to where someone's going to actually maybe buy your stuff or come see you play, it's definitely a lot harder.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, man. It may be harder, but you're definitely making it easier with the Full Terror Assault Open Air Festival. Shane, the one question that I have, and we debate this all the time on the show because we've seen so many guys that do it wrong, I guess, is how do you make how do you make the decisions that make a festival like this commercial or financially viable? I'm certainly not trying to say, that you're making $1 million, because I'm going to guess you're not. But, and you've seen this too, man. How many times it seems like every summer there's one or two festivals of varying rock and metal styles that comes right up to the day, and then the thing gets canceled day of because they haven't budgeted right, or they haven't, they don't have the money to pay the bands to get on stage or whatnot. And I mean, obviously it's a logistical nightmare with, like you said, 49 bands. How do you balance, the finance with the love for the music and make sure that you run a successful festival instead of something that just you would love personally?
Well, I'll be honest, man. The first year, going back to the very first year, that was, the question you're at, it's really hard.
Sure.
And I've learned a lot out of 5 years. I tell you what, man, I've got a lot of respect for anybody who sticks their neck out and does something like this. Even this on the smaller scale, but like even the guys that run like the Maryland Death Fest, I mean, respect to those guys. Those guys
Sure.
have been doing it all these years and have all these bands play, from Europe and stuff like that. And even the other smaller festivals that do it as well, and because you're right, man. I mean, making money. The first year I lost a lot of money.
Sure.
That's a fact, But, I was able to learn some valuable lessons and come back in year two and, kind of recoup a little. I wouldn't say recoup, but to answer your question, I'm not making any money, bro, to be honest with you. Luckily right now I've got a core group of friends that believe in this and some other people that help out, and I budgeted to where, I can put on the best show that I can for what I have. Like I say, I learned a lot of lessons the first couple of years. Now I'm trying to fine tune things a little bit more, and there's bands that I would like to get, but they're just too expensive. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're just out of my wheelhouse right now. I'd love to get some bigger bands down there, but it's like, you've got to stick to a budget, and it goes back to what I was saying before. You've got to build this thing. You can't just throw a big name band out there and hope that people show up. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to really kind of sell that experience. The camping, and then you've got to people are real kind of the very first year. You think back to that. People were probably saying, man, there's some freaking idiot who's going to do an open air fest in the middle of nowhere in the woods. And he's saying there's going to be Napalm Death and Obituary and BYOB, I don't believe it,
Right.
So I'm going to set this out and see what happens. And, luckily, I've made it 5 years, and I think that, continuing on, I think it'll keep growing and keep doing better. And, but you just got to budget things out, and you got to realize that, everybody's got to get paid. Luckily I've been in a situation where things have gotten better every year for me. I've never not had to, I never could not pay a band,
Sure.
But, a lot of the bands on the lower level, those guys, they're coming down on their own dime. They just want to play, and they want to, sell some merch and be involved. And, that's that whole hustling mentality. You know what I mean? So, everybody thinks that, this is the fifth year, he's probably making, a bunch of money, but, it ain't that way at all. You know what I mean?
Right.
I do it. I really, I've been to, I'm in a couple bands, and I've been to a lot of festivals, and I just know that the whole reason I started this thing was that, there's really nothing like this right now, as far as at the time, the open air with the camping and stuff like that, and the BYOB for the extreme. Like I said, the Maryland guys, they do a great job. They've had some open air stuff outside, but there's no camping and stuff like that, like a true, European open air.
Right.
And I remember going to those European festivals, 15 years ago, and there's still people that I met there in Europe 15 years ago that I still keep in contact with.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Same with the Milwaukee thing. It's just you build those bonds and stuff like that, and that's didn't start this thing to, make $1 million. You know what I mean? Because let's face it, there's not a lot of money in death metal and grindcore. You know what I mean? If you think that, then
right. No,
you're wrong.
You're right. And the interesting thing is you were saying a couple minutes ago about you'd love to bring in the bigger bands, but they price themselves out. The truth is if you did bring in the bigger bands, I'll throw Slayer out there just because I know they're on tour right now. If you brought a Slayer in on this thing, which I know is a ridiculous amount of money to get, but it would change the whole vibe of what your festival is in the first place. It wouldn't fit. I mean, even with the bands that you have on here that are, the quote unquote known bands, your Cataclysm or Unearth or Soulfly or what have you, those are bands that have never distanced themselves from the rest of the bands. And what I mean by distance is they've never set themselves like we're above them. They still seem, all of those guys, and I know guys in every one of those bands, they still seem very much in tune with the scene and wanting to be death metal scene guys and not elite musicians, if that makes any sense. Yeah,
totally. And I'll be honest with you, this year, I was actually looking, because you start something out and you kind of gauge things, 5 years, okay, this is the 5-year anniversary. Well, we want to definitely make it bigger than it was last year, but, you got to do something kind of special for the 5th year.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go into detail, but I mean, I was looking at some larger bands, you know what I mean? And I thought I had a lock on a few, and things kind of fell through, you know what I mean? But for someone like myself, it's hard to, it's about weighing that gamble. But you want to try to give the people that have coming down there and being a part of this festival, you want to give them something special too. You know what I mean? They're every year coming down. Every year you see the same people come every year, and they're always, buying tickets, and you want to do something to really make them happy, but you got to be disciplined, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And but stuff like Slayer and stuff like that, that's just out of my zone for a while, you know what I mean? I have a hard time even, there's some other. And the other thing, it's a hard sell for me at times because, like I say, I'm in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? The campgrounds are great. Once you get down there, you're not playing in Los Angeles where you've got a big city you can hang out in, or Las Vegas, something like that. You're flying in somewhere and you're going to have to, the closest airport's about an hour and a half, and you're going to have to shuttle in, and you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
There's nothing, you're there to play, and that's it. You know what I mean? So it's not real until it gets up to a point like a Wacken or something like that,
Sure.
where it's just like
well,
something
spectacular.
But
that festival is otherworldly, though. I love the live stream that they're able to do, and I can't believe that they invest as much money as they can into streaming it, so that people can watch it. But it's ridiculous. I mean, I was watching it a couple weeks ago, and I watched pretty much every band that was playing. And I mean, they had bands at noon, like Crocus or something, playing at noon, and that place was packed. It was 80,000 people all the way back at noon. I was like, get out of here with this.
It's crazy, you know what I mean? But, they've been at it now for 30 years?
30 years, sure,
like
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something like that. So, I got a long way to go, you know what I mean? Hopefully I don't have a heart attack before then, but I mean, it's, every year it's a process, man, to put things together,
Sure.
But if someone wanted to start a festival, I'd say my advice to them would be to take it real slow.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep. No, I hear you, man. Well, dude, you definitely have a great festival. It's the Full Terror Assault Open Air Festival. Tell people once again when, where they can get tickets, where they can find out all the information.
September 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, Cave in Rock, Illinois, Southern Illinois. BYOB, you got to like that. You're not paying $14 for a brew and $8 for a water, $10 for a cheeseburger. So it's real. We got food vendors there. It's just a super cool campground. You got to come check it out. Seriously, I'm not just saying that. But you can get tickets at fullterrorassault.com. And, like I say, really try to make it out this year. It's a great lineup, and I think, like I said, when you come down there one time, I got you. You're coming back every year, guaranteed. Unless you lose your job or something like that, you know what I mean? I don't know, but
then they might come and volunteer with you.
What's that?
Then they might come and volunteer for you.
Yeah, well, you know, like I say, there's people that come down there just a week early, just to, you know, help set up. You know what I mean? So it's crazy like that. People just they like it so much they just want to be involved with it. So I mean, there's so many people that do, you know, a lot of work behind here, and they do it for nothing, and you know, they believe in it, and so it's really a good vibe amongst the core group of people that we have. You know what I mean? That's the cool thing about it.
No doubt, man. Well, all right, Shane. Well, why don't we end with a little Cataclysm? As I told you, they're my favorite band of everyone that you've got on this thing. So I thought we'd end with As I Slither. How's that work?
That sounds good.
All right, so let's check it out right now. It is Cataclysm. It's As I Slither, exclusively here on your Classic Metal Show.